in the stories we tell. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. The 6th of June, an auspicious day, on Duke Street, the most prosperous in the capital, the wedding procession from the Marquis of Xianxia's manor was both resplendent and imposing. It stretched half a mile long. The bridal sedan, carried by 8 bearers, was adorned with red lacquer, gold, and vibrant phoenixes. The ceremonial guards, marching in perfect formation at the front and rear, caused all the passers-by to stop and stare. Looking at such a grand display, it was truly befitting the Marquis of Xianxia taking his official wife. I heard this new madam is the legitimate daughter of the Minister of Revenue, a true lady of noble birth, engaged to the Marquis since childhood. But so what if she's so good? The Marquis and that concubine by in his heart were childhood sweethearts. If her family hadn't fallen into ruin, the position of madam today might not have been hers. I heard that concubine even bore the Marquis a pair of fraternal twins. The murmuring gossip was drowned out by the resounding sound of drums and gongs. Inside the bridal satin, I, Celeste Jiang, rested my hands on my knees. My face beneath the wedding veil was as calm as still water. My mother's words from this morning, spoken through tears, still echoed in my ears. Once you enter the Marquis of Xianxia's manor, you are the matriarch. Remember, you must never lose the bearing of a matriarch. The sedan chair suddenly stopped. Outside, there was the uniform sound of kneeling. We respectfully welcome the Marquis. The sedan curtain was gently lifted, and a hand, bony and well-defined, was extended before me. I took a soft breath and placed my hand in his, immediately feeling the rough calluses in his palm. They were the traces left by many years of wielding a sword. Madam, be careful. A deep male voice sounded by my ear, his tone indecipherable, revealing neither joy nor anger. I lowered my gaze to the black, cloud-embroidered boots beneath his robes and followed his lead, taking one steady step after another. 18 years of sheltered upbringing in the inner chambers had made my every step precise and graceful. The tassels on my golden brocade skirt did not sway in the slightest. We stepped over the basin of fire, crossed the saddle, and bowed to heaven and earth. Amidst the loud cries of the master of ceremonies, I could feel countless scrutinizing gazes fixed upon my back. I knew full well that the servants of the manor were all waiting to see. They were waiting to see if a new matriarch like me could suppress the favored concubine by. Entering the bridal chamber, the wedding attendant helped me toward the new room, while the noisy clamor of the banquet echoed from behind. I sat down on the edge of the wedding bed, only then realizing my palms were damp with a thin layer of sweat. The dragon and phoenix candles burned brightly, casting a red glow throughout the room. We invite the Marquis to lift the bride's veil. A balancing rod gently lifted the veil. I slowly raised my head and finally saw clearly the appearance of my husband, Marquis Damien Liu. He had sword-like eyebrows that angled up towards his temples, phoenix eyes as deep and bottomless as a cold lake, a high, straight nose, and lips as thin as blades. The bright red wedding robes made his jade-like face seem to glow. He truly had a regal bearing. Marquis and madam, please drink the nuptial wine. The wedding attendant presented 2 cups made from a gourd, tied with red string. Damien Liu had just taken them when frantic footsteps sounded from outside the door. My lord. A young servant burst in, flustered. Someone from Concubine Bai's courtyard sent word, saying, "The young master suddenly has a high fever. He is crying and making a fuss, insisting on seeing you." The wine cup in Damien's hand paused, his brows furrowed slightly. "Have you called for a physician?" "We have, but the young master refuses to let the physician near him, and even knocked over the medicine bowl." The Marquis's fingers tightened slightly. I took the initiative to speak. "My lord, you should go quickly. Children are frail when ill, and this is when they need their father the most." Damien turned his head to look at me deeply, his gaze seeming to pierce through my skin and see straight into my heart. "I have wronged you, madam. I will go for a moment and return shortly." After speaking, he turned and left. The bridal chamber immediately fell into silence. My 4 dowry maids looked at each other. The lead maid, Sanheng, already had red-rimmed eyes. "What are you standing there for?" I gently lifted the heavy phoenix coronet. "Prepare the bath. Tomorrow I still have to formally meet everyone in the manor." In the hazy steam, I leaned against the edge of the wooden tub, letting the maids comb out my hair. I had long prepared myself, but I just hadn't expected to suffer this humiliation on my wedding night. "Miss?" Sanheng choked out. "That concubine Bai clearly did this on purpose. The young master could get sick any time, but it had to be right now." Silence. My voice wasn't loud, but it made Sanheng fall quiet immediately. Remember, in this place, you must call me madam. Furthermore, words like that must never be spoken a second time. The next day, at the third key quarter hour of yin 3:05 a.m., long before the sky was light, I woke to dress and apply my makeup. I chose a deep red, wide-sleeved gown embroidered with golden peonies. My hair was styled in a dignified Chaoshan high bun, fastened with a 9 phoenix hairpin holding a pearl, the symbol of my status as the matriarch. Madam, Concubine Bai has brought the young master and the young miss to pay their respects. Sanheng reported softly, a hint of dissatisfaction in her voice. According to the rules, they should come at the Chen hour 5:79 a.m. It's only just the beginning of the Mao hour 5:07 a.m. now. Their timing is just right. Let them in. The door curtain was gently parted. A woman in an elegant, pale white silk robe led 2 children, about 4 or 5 years old, slowly inside. She appeared to be in her early 20s, her skin whiter than snow. Her willow-like eyebrows were curved without being drawn, and her lips were naturally rosy without color. The pale white silk dress only emphasized her waist, so slender it looked as if it could be encircled by one hand. Every step she took was as light as a willow branch swaying in the breeze. This was concubine Sylvia Bai. This servant, Bai, pays respects to the madam. Concubine Bai curtsied gracefully, her voice so soft it seemed to drip water. These 2 are the Marquis's children, Leo and Maya. She gently pushed the 2 small children towards me. Hurry and greet your new mother. But the 2 children only clutched her sleeves tightly, their eyes wary as they stared at me. The girl, Mia, even hid behind Concubine Bai's back, peeking out with just half her face. This little one was still feverish yesterday, but she insisted on coming along this morning. Concubine Bai sighed faintly, and as she spoke, she discreetly gave the girl a sharp pinch. Mia suddenly burst into a loud wail, lunged at my dressing table, and violently swept my jewelry box to the floor. Jade, pearls, and golden hairpins scattered everywhere. Leo, seeing this, rushed forward as well, deliberately stomping on the most exquisite hairpins. In the room, all the maids drew a sharp breath, waiting to see how the new madam would react in anger. Concubine Bai made a show of stopping them. Oh dear, the children are being so naughty. Please, madam, don't blame them. They are just children and don't understand things yet. I was in no hurry. I walked over to the 2 children, knelt down, and took 2 exquisite small brocade pouches from my sleeve. Leo, Mia, this is the meeting gift your new mother prepared for you. Inside each pouch was a longevity lock made of solid gold, engraved with the 4 characters for fortune, prosperity, safety, and health. 3 small, glittering bells hung from the bottom. There were also assorted candies wrapped in thin rice paper, emitting a sweet fragrance. The children's crying gradually subsided, their curious eyes fixed on the bright, shining gold locks. Do you like them? I personally fastened the locks around their necks, and I have something even more fun. I clapped my hands. Sanheng immediately brought out 2 mechanical wooden puppets. After being wound up, the puppets began to tumble, making both children burst into giggles. Concubine Bai's smile stiffened slightly. Madam is truly so thoughtful. I stood up and looked directly at her. Children are naturally innocent and lovable. As the Dimyu, the official mother, it is my duty to dote on them. Then I turned to the servants in the room. What are you all standing there for? Hurry and clean up this mess on the floor. The servants, as if waking from a daze, quickly bent down to pick up the items. A few of the older mammas exchanged glances, clearly not expecting me to handle the situation so calmly. I heard that for the past few years, Concubine Bai has been managing the household affairs. It must have been difficult for you. I removed the jade bracelet from my wrist and personally slid it onto hers. The quality of this jade is quite good. Consider it a reward for you. Now that I have entered the manor, Concubine Bai need not trouble herself with household matters any longer. Concubine Bai's face changed slightly. The Marquis instructed this servant to oversee these things. I will speak to the Marquis about his affairs myself. Concubine Bai can rest assured and arrange for the handover in a few days. I lifted my teacup and took a gentle sip. Sanheng, go and invite the steward here. I want to see the manor's account books. Concubine Bai reluctantly gave her thanks and withdrew. As she turned, a flash of resentment gleamed in her eyes. I pretended not to see it, my gaze resting only on the trampled jewelry. Madam, Sanheng looked heartbrokenly at the precious items. It's just a few pieces of jewelry. It's nothing, I said. Go and find out where the Marquis is right now. Sanheng quickly returned to report. The Marquis went to the military barracks early this morning. He said he won't be back for 3 days. I nodded slowly. This little display of dominance from Concubine Bai was enough to make me see many things clearly: the Marquis's attitude, the power dynamics in the manor, the stance of the servants. She had made the first move in this game of chess. Naturally, I would have my own response. In the blink of an eye, it was the day of my homecoming visit. I had just finished breakfast when Xianxia rushed in. "Madam, the Marquis says he is busy with military affairs and cannot accompany you on your homecoming visit." I was adjusting a hairpin in the mirror. Hearing this, my fingers paused slightly. This is truly too much. Xianxia was indignant. The 3-day homecoming visit is an ancestral tradition. How prepare the carriage? I cut her off. It's fine. I will go back alone. In front of the Zhang Manor's gates, my mother, Madame Zhang, was already waiting with the female relatives. Seeing me return alone, a flicker of pain crossed her eyes, but she asked nothing, only grasping my hand tightly. "Mother, don't worry," I whispered in her ear. "I know what I am doing." In the study, my father, Minister Jiang, listened to the events of the past few days, his expression growing as dark as water. "The Marquis of Yongchang is going too far. Father, please calm your anger." I personally poured tea for my father and said softly, "I returned today to ask father for a few people." My father frowned slightly. "Who do you want?" "Mama Li," I said evenly. "Also, I heard third uncle brought back a mama from Jiangnan who is skilled in pharmacology." 1 hour later, I returned to the Marquis's manor with Mama Li. In the carriage with us was another elderly, kind-looking woman. This was Mamaku, who had once served beside the imperial physician. Looking at the scenery outside the window, I thought to myself, no matter how deep the waters of this manor run, I will stir them until the sky and earth tremble. As soon as I passed the second gate of the manor, Concubine Bai was already there with her maids to greet me, a false smile on her face. "Madam has returned. The Marquis just sent word that he must remain at the barracks again tonight." I walked straight past her without stopping. "Mama Shu is elderly. Arrange for her to stay in the east wing room of my courtyard. Mama Li will stay in the west wing to attend to me at night." Concubine Bai's expression stiffened. "I'm afraid this is not appropriate according to the rules." "Rules?" I stopped and turned to look at her. As Concubine Bai teaching me the rules of the Marquis's manor. My gaze made her shudder, and she unconsciously took half a step back. "This servant wouldn't dare." "Good that you wouldn't dare. Xianxia, take Mama Shu to get settled." I finished speaking and turned to Mama Li. "Mama, go to the storeroom and fetch some high-quality bird's nest. I will have it tonight." Arriving at the main courtyard, I summoned all the servants. Seated upright in the main seat of the hall, I slowly scanned the crowd. From today on, Mama Li will manage the affairs of my courtyard. Mama Shu will be responsible for my diet and tonics. Xianxia, Shaking, Qutang and Dongxiu will be my personal attendants. Everyone else, the servants exchanged glances. Some secretly looked towards Mama Wang, Concubine Bai's confidante. Mama Wang grit her teeth and said, "Madam, I'm afraid this is not." "Slap her." The 2 words were light as air, but Mama Li had already stepped forward and delivered 2 heavy slaps. The courtyard fell utterly silent, leaving only Mama Wang's ragged breathing. "Does anyone else have an opinion?" I took a sip of tea, my voice calm. Everyone bowed their heads in unison. No one dared to breathe loudly. That night I was reviewing my dowry list when Xianxia rushed in. "Madam, the kitchen has sent tonight's dinner." I walked out. On the table were only 2 dishes of limp, yellowed greens, a bowl of thin soup with grease floating on top, and a few steamed buns as hard as rocks. "This is the matriarch's meal." Shiking was shaking with anger. I just smiled. "This is perfect. It saves me the trouble of thinking of another way." I turned to Mama Li. "Wrap all of this up exactly as it is, and take it to the Marquis's study." "But, the Marquis is not in the manor." "It is precisely because he is not here. Just place it on his desk, somewhere he will easily see it." Early the next morning, Damien's furious roar echoed from the study. Not long after, a sobbing Concubine Bai was summoned for questioning. In the afternoon, the steward and the accountant brought several thick stacks of ledgers. I casually opened the top one and found it was the daily expense record for the last 3 months. "Is this all there is from the past 3 months?" I looked up at the accountant. Beads of sweat dotted his forehead. "Reporting to Madam," Concubine Bai said, the other books still need to be organized." I smiled faintly. "Very well. Then take your time organizing them." Late that night, I was still sitting under the lamp, checking the ledgers one by one. Mama Shu brought in a bowl of calming soup. "Madam, you should rest." I rubbed my stiff neck. "Mama, look at this." I pointed to an entry in the book. On the 1st of the month, 20 liang were spent on powder and rouge. But on the 9th, another 15 liang were recorded for the exact same items. Mama Shu narrowed her aged eyes. This old servant doesn't understand these things, but I know one truth: a fox's tail cannot be hidden forever. I closed the ledger, deep in thought. This was only the beginning. This concubine Bai had held the managerial power for 3 years. I feared the holes in these accounts were deeper than the manor's pond. The next morning, I was having breakfast when Xianxia ran in frantic. "Madam, it's terrible. The accounts room is on fire." "When?" "Just now." Luckily, it was discovered early, so only half the room burned. But I heard all the account books. I put down my chopsticks. "Let's go and see." Outside the accounts room, it was a chaotic mess. Servants were rushing back and forth with buckets of water to douse the flames. Concubine Bai stood not far away, an unconcealed look of triumph on her face. When she saw me arrive, she feigned concern and stepped forward. "Madam, you must have been frightened. What an unexpected disaster." I looked at the charred roof beams and suddenly asked, "Concubine Bai, do you know what the penalty for arson is under the laws of the Great Zhou dynasty?" Her expression changed abruptly. "What does madam mean by that? Surely you don't suspect this servant?" I didn't say anything. I lightly brushed my sleeves. It's just such a coincidence. As it happens, someone had already made a copy of those few ledgers I was reviewing yesterday. They are still in my room. Concubine Bai's face instantly turned as white as ash. That afternoon, Damien returned to the manor. Hearing what had happened, he came straight to the main courtyard. "The accounts room fire must have frightened you, madam." His voice was stiff, but his eyes held a hint of scrutiny. I was arranging flowers and didn't bother to look up. "Thanks to the Marquis's fortune, this servant is unharmed." I trimmed an excess branch. "It's just that those ledgers, they are burned. They were just old books." "Let's not mention them again," Damien cut in. I finally raised my head to look at him, our gazes meeting in mid-air. In that instant, I understood. Damien knew everything, he simply chose to turn a blind eye. The Marquis is right. The old books truly don't need to be mentioned. I put down the shears. But the new books must still be managed by someone. Damien was silent for a long time. "If madam wishes to manage them, then please do." That night it was said that Concubine Bai smashed an entire tea set in her room. Perhaps she never expected that the fire would not only fail to destroy the evidence, but would also deliver the managerial authority straight into my hands. Meanwhile, in the main courtyard I was writing a letter home by candlelight. "Mother, rest assured. Your daughter has taken the first steps to secure her footing. The road is long, but I will advance one step at a time." On the 1st of October, with 5 days left until the old madam's birthday banquet, "Madam, the gift list for the old madam's 70th birthday celebration has been delivered." Xianxia brought in a gilt-edged booklet while I was checking the previous month's accounts. I took it and glanced through it. "Why is this all so mediocre?" Xianxia pouted. "Concubine Bai said the harvest from the estates was poor this year, so we must be more frugal." I closed the account book. My fingertips tapped the table twice. "Go and invite Concubine Bai over." Before half a cup of tea had passed, Concubine Bai swayed in, her face still wearing that false pleasant smile. "Madam, did you ask for this servant? How are the preparations for the old madam's birthday banquet?" I lifted my teacup, my gaze sweeping over her slightly trembling fingers. Concubine Bai avoided my gaze. "They are underway. It's just that the chef said some ingredients are proving difficult to procure." "Oh." I set my teacup down heavily. The South Sea bird's nest. The Changbai mountain ginseng. Or perhaps the old madam's favorite 8 treasures duck, which uses local countryside ducks. I stood up, looking down on her from my full height. "Concubine Bai, you don't even know that." Her face turned shades of green and white. She twisted the handkerchief in her hands, rendered speechless. "There are 5 days left until the banquet. From this moment on, I will personally oversee the preparations." I turned to Xianxia. "Go and summon all the managers from the kitchen and the storerooms here." Concubine Bai panicked. "Madam, for all the past years, it has been this servant who. From this year forward it will be me." I cut her off, my voice cold. "Or does Concubine Bai wish to make the old madam lose face at her own birthday banquet?" Watching her figure scurry away, I let out a soft, cold laugh. This birthday banquet, I would use it to show the entire manor exactly who the true matriarch of the Marquise of Yongcheng's manor was. On the day of the banquet, I woke before dawn and went personally to the kitchens to supervise the preparation of several key dishes. As the Sai hour 9:11 a.m. arrived, the guests had all gathered. The old Madame Lu was helped to the head seat, her silver hair meticulously combed. Your granddaughter-in-law has come to wish you longevity, grand matriarchs. I stepped forward, curtsied, and presented a statue of Guanyin carved from white jade. I respectfully wish you fortune as vast as the eastern sea and longevity as eternal as the southern mountains. The old madam accepted it, a benevolent smile spreading across her face. Good, good, rise quickly. You have prepared this banquet with great care. It is this granddaughter-in-law's duty. I replied with a bow, and it was also thanks to Concubine Bai's prior preparations. The old madam smiled and nodded, her eyes showing even more satisfaction. Concubine Bai, sitting among the female relatives, found her expression growing increasingly unsightly. She leaned her head slightly and whispered a few words to the maid beside her. Not long after, Leo and Maya ran to the old madam's side. Great grand matriarch, we've come to wish you longevity. The old madam had just begun to smile when disaster struck. Leo accidentally bumped into a maid carrying food. The bowl of hot soup in her hand tilted, and the entire bowl of scalding liquid spilled directly toward the old madam. In that split second, I lunged forward, using my sleeve to shield her. The hot soup splashed straight onto my arm, a searing pain causing it to immediately flush a bright red. Quickly, summon the physician. Bring cold water. Be careful of the shards. Amidst the chaos, I gripped my teeth against the pain and first checked to ensure the old madam was unharmed. Looking up, I met her gaze. It was complex, moved, and appreciative. Good child, you have truly suffered. Damien, hearing the news, rushed over. The moment he saw the scene, his face darkened. He was just about to scold the children when I spoke first. They are young. Clumsiness is a common thing. My lord, don't frighten them. The old madam suddenly grasped my uninjured hand and removed an ancient key from her own wrist. This is for you. A murmur went through the entire banquet. That was the key to the treasury, passed down from one generation to the next, the highest symbol of power within the inner court. Concubine Bai watched as the chopsticks in her hand fell to the ground with a clatter. After the banquet, Damien came to my room. Looking at my bandaged arm, he hesitated. Today, my thanks to you, madam. I was reviewing the account books. Only then did I look up. My lord, you are too kind. It was what I ought to do. He was silent for a moment, then spoke softly. That bowl of soup, was it, my lord? I interrupted, my gaze as calm as still water. There are some things that are better left understood without being spoken. We looked at each other for a moment. A complex emotion flickered in his eyes, but in the end, he said nothing more and turned to leave. Just as he left, Xuanheng entered. Madam, Concubine Bai is in the Marquis's study, sobbing. She's saying you intentionally staged the whole thing at the banquet, just to get the key. I gently stroked the bronze key in my hand, the corners of my lips curling up. It's fine, let her cry. Winter in the capital arrived silently. Madam, this month's delivery of silver frost charcoal for the manor is short wait, Xuanheng said, carrying a basket of charcoal, her face full of indignation. I was checking the old madam's tonic prescriptions. Hearing this, my brush paused. How short? A full 100 jin caddies. Mama Shu says if this continues, we won't even have enough for the old madam's heating room. I put down my brush. Let's go to the storeroom. We crossed 2 corridors. The mama guarding the storeroom saw me and hurriedly curtsied. I took out the key the old madam had given me, but the woman looked troubled. Madam, please forgive me. To retrieve charcoal, one must have her approval. Oh. My voice was light, but my eyes turned cold. Since when, in this manner, does the word of a concubine override the matriarch and the key of the old madam herself? Hearing this, the mama dropped to her knees, trembling as she unlocked the storeroom. The room, which should have been piled high with silver, frost charcoal, now only had a dozen or so baskets in a corner. The ledger says 600 jin were delivered this month. Where has it all gone? I pointed to the book. Reporting to madam. Concubine Bai said the young master Leo fears the cold, so the west courtyard took a little extra. I said nothing more, turning to walk straight to the west courtyard. From a distance, I could hear Concubine Bai's clear laughter from the heated room. Leo, run slower. Be careful you don't fall. I pushed the door open. A wave of heat hit my face, so intense that even Xuanheng took a sharp, cold breath. The Dailong's underfloor heating in the west courtyard was burning fiercely, and several basins of charcoal were lit at the same time. Leo's little face was flushed bright red as he played on a thick rug. Madam has arrived. Concubine Bai feigned surprise, fanning herself. Leo, quickly, come and greet your mother. The child just hid behind her, looking at me with apprehension. I calmly took an intricate 9-linked rings puzzle from my sleeve. Leo, would you like to play with this? The boy's eyes lit up. He was about to step forward when Concubine pulled him back. Madam, please don't spoil him. Leo has had a cough these past few days. The physician instructed him to be kept warm, is that so? I stepped forward and placed my hand on the boy's forehead. It was burning hot. He is already this feverish, yet you keep him locked in a room this hot with so much charcoal. Concubine are you truly this ignorant, or are you pretending to be? Before she could retort, I turned and ordered Sanheng, go and summon Mama Su. Mama Li, clear out all this charcoal and open the windows for ventilation. Concubine was aghast. You dare, the Marquis said. It doesn't matter what the Marquis said. Leo is a son of the Yongchang manor. I am his Dimu, his official mother. Do I not have the right to discipline him? I stared at her, my voice turning icy. Or perhaps Concubine no longer even respects the words of the old madam. As we were in this stalemate, Mama Kui, the old madam's personal attendant, appeared at the door. The old madam requests the presence of the madam and Concubine In the hall of longevity and peace, the old madam was chanting scriptures. Seeing us enter, she continued to finger her prayer beads. I heard that the entire manor has been thrown into chaos over a few jin of charcoal. Concubine immediately dropped to her knees, sobbing. Old madam, please see clearly. Leo is ill. This servant was only what? The old madam opened her eyes, her gaze sharp. Skimping on the supplies for the other courtyards, disregarding the words of the matriarch. Or do you think I am old and no longer deserve to use good charcoal? Concubine face turned white. She kowtowed repeatedly. Celeste, girl. The old madam turned to me. The key has been given to you. Do I still need to teach you what must be done? I curtsied deeply. Your granddaughter-in-law understands. Upon returning to the main courtyard, I immediately summoned all the stewards of the manor and announced in front of everyone. From now on, all supplies to the courtyards will be distributed strictly according to regulations. Whatever amount the west courtyard has overused will be deducted directly from their silver allowance next month. I scanned the crowd. If anyone has an objection, you may step forward now. The courtyard was dead silent. That night, Concubine fell ill and sent someone to the military barracks with a letter for the Marquis. The messenger was intercepted by my people before he even left the inner gates. The madam has instructed that the Marquis is busy with military affairs. There is no need to bother him with trivial matters from the household. A few days later, Damien finally returned to the manor. The Marquis has returned. I led the maids out to greet him. Damien gave a slight nod. Is everything in the manor? In order. Thanks to the Marquis's fortune, all is well. I stepped aside to let him pass. The old madam has just taken her medicine and is resting. It would be best for the Marquis to pay his respects tomorrow. Damien looked as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he only said softly, Lady Sylvia, Concubine is not feeling well and is currently resting in her courtyard. My voice remained calm. Does the Marquis wish to go and see her? I asked this question very shrewdly. If he went, it would be a slap in the old madam's face. If he didn't, he would appear heartless. Damien was silent for a moment, then just said, I will go tomorrow. In the dead of night, I was reviewing ledgers by lamplight when I heard footsteps outside the window. I looked up and saw Damien standing on the veranda, his shoulders covered in snow. Is there something the Marquis needs? Damien hesitated, then said, The matter with the charcoal. My expression didn't change. Has the Marquis come to hold me accountable? No. It was rare for him to stammer. Never mind. You should rest early. He turned to leave. My lord, I said suddenly. Did you know that the reason Leo had such a high fever that day was because Concubine had dressed him in 5 layers of cotton, padded clothing and then locked him in a room full of burning charcoal? His figure froze. Mama Shu said the child wasn't suffering from a cold, but from overheating. My voice was very soft. If the Marquis doesn't believe me, you can go and ask the old madam yourself. The snow fell silently. In the end, Damien said nothing more and disappeared into the vast night. On the morning of the 26th of the 12th lunar month, Sanheng entered to report. Madam, an invitation has arrived from the palace. I was teaching Leo to practice his calligraphy. Recently, Leo and Mia had been coming to my study to read and write. What invitation? I took a towel to wipe my hands. The noble consort is hosting a snow viewing banquet and has personally named the matriarch of the Marquis's manor to attend. Sanheng was so happy her face was flushed. The palace eunuch who delivered the invitation is still waiting in the front hall. I opened the invitation and read it carefully. At the end was the noble consort's official seal. The date was set for 3 days from now. I folded the invitation and turned to Leo. He still looked a bit lost. Leo, go and tell your sister that lessons are cancelled for today. Just as Leo ran out, Concubine Bai walked in, a strange smile on her face. Madame, I heard. An invitation came from the palace. I motioned for Xianxia to put the invitation away. Concubine Bai's news travels fast. Madam, you may not know, Concubine Bai said, twisting a handkerchief. But for banquets like this, in all the past years, it has always been this servant who accompanied the marquis. The palace rules are many and strict. Perhaps this time, it would be better to let me. Let you what? I cut her off. My voice was still soft, but it carried an authority that could not be defied. Let a concubine represent the Marquis of Xianxia's manor in the palace to meet the noble consort. Concubine Bai's face instantly went pale. I didn't mean that. Xianxia, prepare the carriage and my formal attire for entering the palace. I no longer looked at her. Seeking, fetch the set of Eastern pearl jewelry that the old madam gifted me. Concubine Bai stood frozen in place, the handkerchief in her hands crumpled into a tight ball. 3 days later, I woke before dawn to dress and have my hair done. Mama Li personally styled my hair into a Lingian high bun, fastening it with an Eastern pearl hairpin. She placed a small, cinnabar, red Hautian forehead marking in the center of my forehead, making my skin appear even more like snow. On my body was a deep red formal court robe embroidered with golden phoenixes, with a 7-jade belt at my waist. Hanging from my side was the treasury key the old madam had given me. With every step, the jade pendants chimed softly. Madam, today you will certainly outshine all the other noble ladies. Xianxia couldn't help but praise. Today is not about competing in beauty. I adjusted my collar, looking at my reflection in the bronze mirror, and said slowly, it is about securing a status. The carriage rolled through the palace gates just as the sun was rising. I stepped down, assisted by a palace maid, and happened to meet several other titled madams who were also walking toward the imperial garden. Among them, a madam in dark purple court robes looked me over several times before stepping forward. You must be the madam of the Marquis of Xianxia. I curtsied. Indeed, I am, and you are? Madam, my husband is the Vice Minister of War, she replied with a smile. We have long heard that Minister Zhang's daughter, Lady Celeste, is both talented and beautiful. Seeing you today, you truly live up to your reputation. I walked and chatted with the other ladies, my words measured, neither overbearing nor obsequious. I soon blended into their circle. When the topic turned to banquets of previous years, the Vice Minister's wife suddenly lowered her voice. In past years, the one attending these events from the Marquis's manor was always that, Lady Bai. Sister, be careful with your words. Another madam quickly interrupted. Someone of that improper status. How could she be worthy of being mentioned at the noble consort's banquet? I merely smiled and said nothing, but in my heart, I knew things were crystal clear. In the eyes of the imperial family, the matriarch of the Marquis of Xianxia's manor could only be one person. In the imperial garden, the noble consort sat gracefully in the Peony Pavilion. Seeing me arrive, she specifically called me over to talk. We have heard that Minister Zhang's daughter is an intelligent and skillful person. Seeing you today, it is indeed true. Her voice was languid but pleased. The Marquis of Xianxia is truly fortunate. I respectfully presented a brocade box. Your Highness flatters me. This is a night, luminous pearl my father brought back from the South Sea. At night, it can illuminate writing clearly. I specially offer it for your Highness's amusement. The noble consort opened the box. Inside, a pearl the size of a pigeon's egg lay quietly on velvet, glowing with a soft, green light under the sun. She nodded in satisfaction. You are very thoughtful. In the middle of the banquet, a palace maid suddenly hurried over and whispered a few words in my ear. My expression remained unchanged. I quietly excused myself to the noble consort and followed the maid to a side hall. Damien was standing there, still in his court robes, clearly having rushed over straight after the morning assembly. My lord. I couldn't hide my surprise. His expression was complicated. The noble consort sent an invitation. I was afraid that. Is the Marquis afraid that I don't know the proper etiquette and would embarrass the manor? My voice was very light, but each word was like a needle. Damien froze. That's not what I. My lord, rest assured. I cut him off. Although I may not be like Concubine Bai, who pleases the Marquis so, the upbringing of a daughter from the Zhang family is not so poor as to be disrespectful in front of the noble consort. I turned to leave. Damien suddenly grabbed my wrist. Celeste. It was the first time since our wedding that he had called me by my name. I paused, but did not turn back. If the Marquise has no other business, I will return to the banquet. The noble consort is still waiting. Back at the banquet table, the vice minister's wife asked with concern, "Sister, is everything all right?" I smiled faintly and shook my head, lifting my wine cup for a sip. It was high-quality grape wine, but it tasted bitter in my mouth. When the snow-viewing banquet concluded, I returned to the manor. As soon as I entered the inner courtyard, I heard the sound of smashing objects coming from the west courtyard. "Madam, should we go and see?" Xianxia asked quietly. I removed the eastern pearl earrings. "No need. Prepare my bath. I'm tired." I had just changed into my casual robes when the courtyard gate was slammed open. Concubine by, her hair in disarray, stormed in, tear tracks still on her face. "Madam had a wonderful time at the palace today, I'm sure. Do you have any idea the torment I am suffering in this manor?" I signaled for the maids to withdraw. Concubine by, what is the meaning of this? These capital banquets, wasn't it always me who attended every year? Her voice was sharp. You must have pulled strings behind my back. You must have spread words to the noble consort's ears. I calmly poured a cup of tea. Concubine by, do you know why the noble consort didn't summon you? I gently blew on the tea. It is because this Marquise of Yongchang's manor now has a proper, official matriarch. Concubine by looked as if she had been struck by lightning, stumbling back 2 steps. "And one more thing," I said, setting down my cup. "Leo is already 5 years old. It is time for him to begin his formal education. I have invited Scholar Zhu from the Hanlin Academy to be his tutor. He will arrive at the manor the day after tomorrow." "No." Concubine by suddenly became agitated. "My son is still young. I don't want him to leave my side." "That is not for you to decide." My voice turned cold. "He is the young master of the Marquis's manor, not your private possession. If you truly want what is best for him, you should hope he becomes a success, not raise him to be a child who can't leave his mother's side." Concubine by's face was white. She suddenly turned and ran out. That night, Damien returned to the manor and came straight to the main courtyard. I was reading by lamplight. I didn't stand up when I saw him. "Has the Marquis come to demand justice on Concubine by's behalf?" He was silent for a moment. "I heard hired a tutor for Leo." "Yes." I closed the book. "Does the Marquis find this unsatisfactory?" "No. It's very good." Damien nodded. "Scholar Zhu's knowledge is profound. I had also intended to invite him." I was slightly surprised. I looked up at him. By the candlelight, the planes of his face were deeply shadowed. He hesitated, then said, "Today, in the palace." "My lord, rest assured, I did not disgrace the Yongchang manor." I cut him off. "The noble consort gifted me a pair of Roy scepters made of jade. I have already had them stored in the treasury." Damien seemed to want to say something more, but finally, he just sighed. "You should rest early." After he left, Xianxia couldn't help but ask, "Madame, why was the Marquis acting so strangely tonight?" I watched the flickering candlelight and said softly, "Because he has finally begun to understand who, in this vast manor, is the true matriarch. It seems tomorrow will bring another storm." "Madam, it's terrible. The young master and young miss are vomiting uncontrollably. Concubine by is saying it's because they ate the pastries you sent them." Xianxia burst into the study as I was writing the formal invitation for Scholar Zhu. My brush paused, and a drop of ink spread on the paper. "Have you called for a physician?" "We did, but Concubine by blocked them, insisting it was your fault." Xianxia leaned in and whispered, "The Marquis just returned from court and was immediately called over to the west courtyard." I stood up and smoothed my sleeves. "Go, invite Mama Su here, and have Shiking bring the outer robe I was wearing this morning." The west courtyard was in chaos. Before I entered, I could hear Concubine by's sobbing accusations. "My lord, look. My children's faces are completely pale." It was clearly the pastries. I stepped over the threshold. Damien was sitting by the bed, his expression as dark as water. The 2 children were curled up on the bed, their faces wan. "My lord." I curtsied slightly. Damien looked up, his gaze as sharp as a knife. "Madam." I intended to do just that. I turned calmly to Mama Su. "Mama, please examine the children's food." Concubine by suddenly lunged forward. "You still want to harm my children." Her hair was a mess, she looked like a madwoman. "That plate of pastries was clearly brought by your maid, Xianxia." I inclined my body to avoid her taking the robe from Jacquing. "Concubine by, don't be so hasty." Everyone looked on confused. I unfurled the sleeve of the aqua-colored robe, revealing a few flecks of brown powder. This morning, I went to check on the old madam's medicine. As I passed the west courtyard, I was bumped into by a rushing maid. My voice was slow and deliberate. I didn't pay it any mind at the time, but I just discovered this on my sleeve. Mama Shu, would you see what this is? Mama Shu took a small pinch, brought it to her nose, and her face changed instantly. Reporting to Madam, this is croton seed powder. You're lying, Concubine Bai shrieked. It was clearly you, and what if it was me? I stepped forward, my eyes ice cold. If I truly wanted to harm the children, would I be foolish enough to put poison in the very pastries I sent? Or does Concubine Bai think I'm so stupid I would leave evidence on my own sleeve? Or perhaps I should have the entire manor searched, to see where a mere maid could possibly hide. Damien suddenly stood up. Enough. He looked at the two children moaning in pain on the bed. Save them first. We will deal with the rest later. Hearing this, I pulled from my sleeve a small porcelain bottle. My lord, this is the antidote Mama Shu prepared. Please let the children drink it first. Concubine Bai slapped the bottle away. Who needs your antidote? The porcelain bottle shattered, and the pills scattered across the floor. I did not get angry, I only gave a faint, cold smile. Concubine Bai, you claim the children are poisoned, yet you refuse to give them the antidote. What kind of logic is that? Damien's gaze turned frigid. He personally picked up one of the pills, sniffed it, and broke it open. Feed it to them. Not long after, the two children gradually stopped vomiting and fell asleep. My lord. Concubine Bai still wanted to speak. Silence. Damien's voice was like ice. From now on, all food and drink for the two children will be managed by the main courtyard. As for you, you are confined for 1 month. Concubine Bai's face turned white, and she collapsed to the floor. When I returned to the main courtyard, Mama Shu couldn't help but ask, Madam, did you know Concubine Bai would make this move? I looked at the darkening sky outside the window. She failed to stop Scholar Ju from tutoring. She was bound to become desperate and reckless. I turned and took an oil paper packet from a hidden compartment. This is the actual plate of pastries I had Sanheng take this morning. Not a single piece has been touched. Mama Shu took it and inspected it. As expected, there was no poison. Then, the children. Why did they all? Sanheng suddenly understood. Concubine Bai poisoned her own children's breakfast. I nodded slowly. Even a tiger will not eat its own cubs. She is more muddled and venomous than a tiger. Late that night, I was writing a letter by lamplight when I heard a faint noise outside the window. I looked up warily, seeing a figure silhouetted on the window paper. Who is it? It's this servant. A trembling voice replied. I am Kair from the west courtyard. I have an urgent matter to report to Madam. I signaled for Swanhang to open the door. The moment the girl entered, she dropped to her knees, shaking like a leaf. Madam, save me. Concubine Bai. She ordered this servant to put poison in your tea. I glanced at Mamazu, then asked, what kind of poison? Kair tremblingly took a small paper packet from her robes. She said it was just a powder to make you tired, but this servant overheard her telling Mama Wang that it was a medicine that would make the madam permanently infertile. Mama Shu took the packet and examined it, her expression changing instantly. Madam, this is child-ending powder. I helped Kair to her feet and said softly, since you have come to report this, are you willing to help me stage a play? 3 days later, I fell ill. Rumors spread throughout the manor that the matriarch had drunk the tea served by Kair, fainted, and had not woken up. Concubine Bai laughed aloud in her room when she heard the news, but her laughter quickly froze. Damien led his personal guards, stormed into the west courtyard, and found an identical packet of powder. My lord, someone is framing me. Concubine Bai screamed hoarsely. Damien threw the packet in her face. Kair has already confessed everything. To prevent the madam from conceiving, you even dared to resort to poisoning. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Concubine Bai clung to his leg. Someone must be setting me up. Damien shook her off and strode directly to the main courtyard. He pushed open the door and saw me sitting perfectly upright at the table, reviewing ledgers, my expression calm. The Marquise has arrived. I looked up, my voice composed. Damien stood frozen. You are not ill. When did I ever say I was ill? I closed the ledger. I was merely tired these past few days and slept a little extra. Then, what about Kair? I sighed softly. The girl is loyal. She saw Concubine Bai acting suspiciously and came to report it to me. Damien's expression shifted between green and white. After a long pause, he said in a low voice, Lady Sylvia, how should she be handled? I looked out the window. She is, after all, the birth mother of the two children. The Marquise should decide. In the end, Concubine Bai was sentenced to half a year of confinement. All the maids and mammas in the west courtyard were replaced, and I promoted Kair to a second-rank maid in the main courtyard. Late that night, I stood alone under the eaves. I had won this battle, but I felt no joy. Madam, Mama Shu approached and said quietly, "This old servant just took your pulse." I was startled. "What is it?" "You are already more than 2 months pregnant." Under the moonlight, I unconsciously placed a hand on my abdomen. This child had come at such an inopportune time. If Concubine Bai knew, I feared she would become even more hysterical. "We must not let this be known for now," I said softly. "Especially, do not let the Marquise know." In the distance, the lights in the west courtyard remained lit all night. A greater storm was brewing in the darkness. Early the next morning, while dressing my hair, I suddenly felt a wave of dizziness and had to grab the dressing table to keep from falling. Mama Su quickly brought a bowl of medicine. "Madame, your body cannot endure this much longer." I took a sip of the bitter tonic and shook my head slightly. "Wait a little longer." I gently stroked my abdomen, which still showed no obvious sign of pregnancy. "If I reveal it now, I fear this child," Sonheng, combing my hair from behind, murmured. "But the Marquis ought to know eventually." I stared into the bronze mirror. My reflection was pale. In his eyes, there is only the woman in the west courtyard. As we were speaking, a commotion erupted outside. Shi King rushed in. "Madam, Concubine Bai has taken the young master, Leo, and forced her way into the old madam's hall of longevity and peace. She is claiming you have been abusing the child." The jade hairpin in my hand snapped and fell to the floor, broken in two. In the hall of longevity and peace, the old Madame Lu sat in the high seat, her expression grave. Concubine Bai knelt on the floor, weeping like a pure blossom in the rain, while Leo hid behind her, watching me with apprehension as I entered. "Your granddaughter-in-law pays respects to the old madam." I curtsied, my voice as calm as if I saw nothing amiss. The old madam slowly lifted her eyelids. "Celeste, girl, Lady Bai claims you have been abusing Leo. Is there any truth to this?" "Your granddaughter-in-law does not understand." I turned to Concubine Bai. "How have I abused the child?" Concubine Bai suddenly lunged, grabbing my sleeve. "Madam, how can you still feign ignorance? The wounds on Leo's back, are they fake? He has been in your courtyard every day for his lessons." She pulled the boy to her and yanked down the back of his collar, revealing angry red welts on his skin. Damien, having heard the commotion, rushed in just in time to see this, and his face instantly darkened. I knelt and looked directly into Leo's eyes. "Leo, tell mother, where did these injuries come from?" The child's eyes flickered, unable to meet mine. Concubine Bai sobbed, "Don't be afraid. Just tell your yin-yang. Your father is here and will seek justice for you." "I am asking the child." My voice was not loud, but it silenced Concubine Bai. I gently took Leo's hand. "Be good. What did mother teach you before? Tell the truth. Mother will absolutely stand up for you." Leo looked at me, then at Concubine Bai, and suddenly burst into tears. "It was Yin-Yang who hit me. She made me say it was mother. If I didn't say it, she wouldn't give me food." Concubine Bai lunged to cover his mouth. "What nonsense are you spouting? The madam must have taught you to say that." "Nuff." The old madam slammed her hand on the table. "Making such a scene in front of a child. Where is your decency?" Damien yanked Concubine Bai to her feet. "What else do you have to say?" Concubine Bai collapsed to the ground, then suddenly pointed at me. "It's her. It must be her who forced Leo. My lord, just think. Since she entered this manor, so many things have happened. Now she wants to drive a wedge between us." I suddenly felt faint and had to lean on Zonheng. Damien reflexively reached out to support me, but I evaded his touch. "My lord." I struggled to keep my balance, my voice barely audible. "If you truly believe I am so malicious, perhaps it is better to write me a letter of divorce. I will leave immediately." Damien was stunned. He had never seen me like this, my face as white as paper, but my eyes burning with two cold flames. "Absurd." The old madam spoke. "Celeste is clearly unwell. Hurry and help her back to rest. Damien, you will escort her back yourself." On the way back to the main courtyard, I walked unsteadily. Leaning heavily on walked behind us, his low voice sounding out, "Are you ill?" My steps faltered. Without turning, I said, "The Marquis should go and concern himself with the person who truly needs his concern." Just as I stepped through the courtyard gate, I could no longer hold on. My vision went black, and I fell forward. Damien lunged, catching me in his arms. He lifted me horizontally. "Summon the physician, quickly." While the physician took my pulse, Damien paced anxiously outside the door. Shanheng, her eyes red, stood guard by the bed. Congratulations, my lord. The physician stepped out, bowing with a smile. The madam has a joyous pulse. She is nearly 3 months pregnant. Damien looked as if he'd been struck by lightning. What? It is just that the madam has been overwrought with worry and suffered a shock. She must rest well. Before the physician could finish, Damien burst into the room. I was leaning against the headboard. When I saw him enter, I turned my face away. The Marquis need not feel conflicted. I will raise this child myself. Nonsense. Damien cut me off, his voice hoarse but softer. Why? Why didn't you say so sooner? I looked out the window. And what if I had? Would the Marquis have believed me, or would you have believed her? Damien was speechless. That was right. If he had known earlier I was pregnant, would he have thought I was using it to fight for favor? The thought weighed heavily on his chest. From now on, you just need to rest and nourish the pregnancy, he said stiffly. You don't need to worry about the manor's affairs anymore. I smiled faintly. Is the Marquis planning to let Concubine manage the household again? No. Damien shook his head. I will manage it. That answer surprised me. I turned back to look at him. This great general, whose name struck terror into enemies on the battlefield, now looked like a child who had made a mistake, awkward and clumsy. The Marquis knows how to manage a household. I couldn't help but ask. Damien rubbed his nose. I can learn. When this news reached the west courtyard, it was said Concubine began smashing things again. I gave an order. The cost of everything she breaks is to be deducted from her monthly allowance. Also, send word that since Concubine has been suffering from excessive anger lately, all the Longquan Celadon vases and dingware white porcelain bowls in her room are to be moved to the storeroom. From now on, her room will only be furnished with pottery jars, to prevent her from breaking them and cutting her hands, which would only make the Marquis grieve. Suddenly, I felt a slight flutter in my abdomen. I gently placed my hand there, an uncontrollable smile touching my lips. It was the plum rain season. Several consecutive days of rain had left the manor's corridors perpetually damp. I held Xianxia's arm, walking slowly toward the Hall of Longevity and Peace to pay my respects. Madam, please be careful of the step. Xianxia gently supported me. The old madam already said, now that you are pregnant, you don't need to come every day. I shook my head. Etiquette cannot be abandoned. I paused, looking toward the end of the corridor. Damien was standing in front of the west courtyard's gate. Concubine was clutching his sleeve, stammering something, tear stains on her cheeks. Xianxia stomped her foot in frustration. The Marquis is really too much. You are already pregnant, yet he still. I averted my gaze and continued walking. In the Hall of Longevity and Peace, the old madam was having her morning pastries. Seeing me arrive, she waved me over. Come, sit. The kitchen made the burdock and barley snacks you like. As soon as I sat, the old madam glanced at my stomach and smiled. I can tell. It looks like a son. The old madam is truly sharp-eyed. I smiled and accepted the teacup, but suddenly felt a wave of nausea and quickly covered my mouth with a handkerchief. The old madam sighed. That matter with Lady Bai, how has it been handled? I lowered my head. The Marquis will make his own decision. You are too magnanimous. The old madam patted my hand. In the past, if his father hadn't been so insistent on fulfilling the marriage contract with the Zhang family, Damien probably would have married Lady Bai. The two of them grew up together. This was the first time I heard the old madam speak of the past. But an engagement is an engagement. Her voice suddenly firmed. The Bai family's downfall was her misfortune. Since she became a concubine, she must abide by the rules of a concubine. Just as she spoke, hurried footsteps sounded outside. Damien rushed in, his forehead damp with sweat. Grand matriarch, I am late. The old madam snorted. So you remembered to come. I thought you had been soaked soft by the tears in the west courtyard. Damien stood awkwardly, stealing a glance at me. Has the Marquis had breakfast yet? I asked quietly. He shook his head. No. Good. Then sit and eat with Celeste. The old madam ordered the servants. Add another setting. She doesn't enjoy eating alone. The meal passed in awkward silence. Damien tried to speak several times, but seeing my calm expression, he swallowed his words. When the maids had cleared the table, the old madam said, Damien, Celeste is pregnant. The teacup in Damien's hand paused. I know. I will visit the west courtyard less often. The old madam said coldly. That will keep certain people from getting wicked ideas. When I returned to the main courtyard and was about to rest, Mama Sue hurried in. Madam, this old servant found this in the small kitchen. She unfolded a handkerchief. Inside were several small, brown pills. I took one and sniffed it, my expression changing. It was hidden at the bottom of the rice bin. Mama Shu trembled. If the rice sack hadn't torn this morning when I was scooping, I never would have found it. I was silent for a moment, then asked, "Where is the Marquis?" "He just left to prepare his carriage." I stood up. "I'm going to the west courtyard." Concubine Bai was embroidering. When she saw me enter, she looked momentarily panicked but quickly forced a smile. "Madam, why have you come yourself? You could have just summoned this servant." I walked straight to the main seat. "Concubine Bai, I came today to tell you a story." She was startled. "What story?" "Once, because the matriarch was pregnant, she hid abortion pills in the small kitchen." My voice was soft, but every word was like a knife. "Tell me, what punishment does such a concubine deserve?" The embroidery frame in Concubine Bai's hands fell to the floor. Madam, what do you mean?" "This servant doesn't understand." "You don't understand." I pulled out the brown pills. "Then perhaps you recognize these." Concubine Bai's face turned ashen, and she lunged forward to snatch them. "You're framing me." I sidestepped her, my voice cold. "I haven't said who planted the poison. Why is Concubine Bai so quick to admit it?" She stammered, then burst into tears. "The Marquis won't believe you. The Marquis and I grew up together. He understands me?" "Does he really?" I laughed. "Then let us wait for the Marquis to return, and we will confront him face to face." A crazed light flashed in Concubine Bai's eyes. "Don't be so smug. The Marquis's heart has only ever belonged to me. If it weren't for your family's power and influence, I would be the matriarch." I watched her raving, and suddenly felt a surge of pity. "Concubine Bai, do you still not understand? Even without me, the Marquis's manor would never allow the daughter of a convicted criminal to be its matriarch." My words struck her like a knife. She grabbed a pair of scissors from the table. "I'll kill you." In that critical moment, a figure burst in and seized Concubine Bai's wrist. Damien had returned at some unknown point, his face terrifyingly dark. "Sylvia Bai, have you gone mad?" When Concubine Bai saw it was him, her tears instantly fell like rain. "Brother Xian, she has framed me too many times." Damien snatched the scissors from her hand. "I already know everything, you don't need to deny it anymore." As if all strength had been drained from her, Concubine Bai desperately grasped his robes. "I was forced. I was afraid that if you had a legitimate son, you wouldn't love Leo and Mia anymore." Damien closed his eyes. When he opened them, his gaze was devoid of warmth. Concubine Bai is confined to the west courtyard to await the old madam's decision. That night, the old madam was furious and ordered Concubine Bai to be sent to a countryside estate to recuperate. Damien did not object. He just drank alone in the front courtyard late into the night. When I went to find him, holding my stomach, he was already drunk, staring blankly at the moon. "My lord," I called softly. Damien turned his head. In the moonlight, the corner of his eye seemed to glitter with a tear. "When she was young, she couldn't even bear to step on an ant." I sat down opposite him, saying nothing. "When I was 13, I was playing and fell through the ice on the lake. It was she who called people to save me." He spoke to himself. "Later, when the Bai family was convicted, she was almost sold to a brothel. I begged my father to take her as a concubine." I listened quietly, then suddenly asked, "Has the Marquis ever considered that people change?" Damien froze. The girl from all those years ago may have been innocent, but the Concubine Bai of today, she was willing to harm an unborn child. I gently stroked my abdomen. "The Marquis wishes to reminisce about the past. I will not stop you. But please remember, what you must protect is the future." With that, I stood and left, leaving him alone under the moon. In the middle of the third watch, I was woken by frantic knocking. Shanheng burst in, terrified. "Madam Concubine Bai, she's escaped. She injured the steward and stole a horse." My heart trembled. "Where is the Marquis?" "He has already led men to pursue her." The rain was pouring. I stood under the eaves staring into the pitch black night, a terrible premonition rising in my heart. Just as the sky began to light, Damien returned. Behind him, several guards carried a stretcher. Concubine Bai lay still upon it, her face pale. "Why ran into bandits on the road?" His voice was hoarse. She did it to protect me." I looked at the woman who had once been so radiant. A complicated bitterness filled my heart. 3 days later, Concubine Bai was buried. Damien stood before her grave for an entire day. I did not disturb him. I only instructed the servants to take good care of the 2 children. They were still too young to understand separation by death. Late that quiet night, Damien finally returned to the main courtyard. I was sewing baby clothes by lamplight. Seeing him enter, I simply said softly, "The kitchen has kept some congee warm for you." He stood at the door and suddenly asked, "Why?" I looked up. "Why what? Why can you be so calm?" His eyes were bloodshot. She almost killed our child. And yet, you." I put down my needle and thread. "My lord, since I was a child, I knew I was to marry you. Music, chess, calligraphy, painting, managing a household, balancing ledgers. Everything I learned was to become a good matriarch." I paused. "But I never learned how to make my husband love me. Concubine is gone. I feel regret. For the sake of the 2 children." I lowered my head and continued stitching the small cap. "But the days in this manor must go on, must they not, my lord?" On the day my son, Arthur Liu, was born, I grit my teeth and used every last bit of my strength until I finally heard the baby's loud, clear cry. "Congratulations, madam. It is a healthy young master." I took the swaddled child, looking at his tiny, wrinkled face, a rare tenderness in my eyes. "Take him, for the old madam to see," I said, my voice weak, but I still remembered to instruct Sanheng. Damien had been waiting outside all night. When he entered, his eyes were dark with exhaustion. He carefully approached the bed. "Madam." "My lord." I nodded slightly. "Thank you for your concern." I knew what he was waiting for, but at that moment I truly had no energy left to deal with it. The birth had drained almost all of my vitality. On the day of Arthur's 1-month celebration, the manor had a grand feast. I held the baby, dressed in new clothes, and accepted the congratulations from the guests. Damien stood beside me, occasionally shielding me from the pressing crowd. "The Marquise and Madame are truly so loving." Those whispers reached my ears. I lowered my head to hide the mocking smile in my eyes. They had no idea that just a few days prior, the Emperor had gifted him 2 beauties, who were currently residing in the guest courtyard. That night, I was leaning against the headboard, reviewing the gift ledgers. Damien entered, holding a scroll. "Madam, you are still in your confinement month. You should let the servants handle these things." I looked up at him. "Where does the Marquis think the 2 beauties gifted by His Majesty should be settled?" His expression froze. "The ink jade pavilion in the east courtyard has been prepared," I said calmly. "It is far from the main courtyard and quiet." Damien looked as if he wanted to speak, but in the end, he just sighed. "Madam can decide." I knew everyone on the outside praised the Madam of Xianxia as magnanimous, but they didn't understand. It wasn't magnanimity, it was clear-headedness. When Arthur turned 1, Damien brought back a box of South Sea pearls. This time, I didn't store them in the treasury. I had them made into a set of jewelry and wore it to the palace banquet. The pearls the Marquis gifted truly make one's complexion glow. I smiled as I spoke to the other madams who came to inquire. Damien stood not far away, a faint smile in his eyes. Between him and me, we always maintained that distance, neither far nor near, respectful as guests. The years passed like flowing water. Leo married and Mia was married off. I handled all the arrangements meticulously. As we watched Mia's bridal sedan disappear through the main gates, Damien suddenly said, "You raised the children very well. They are all children of the Marquis's manor. Naturally, they cannot be lacking." I replied calmly, though a small warmth spread in my heart. When Arthur turned 16, he was officially named the heir. At the celebration feast, Damien drank more than usual. He tugged on my sleeve, his eyes hazy with intoxication. "All these years has been hard on you." I supported his stumbling form. "My lord, you are drunk." Another 10 years passed. Damien fell gravely ill. Just before the end, his gaze as he looked me suddenly became unusually clear. There is a next life." I pulled the blanket up for him and replied softly, "My lord, rest assured, I am still here to watch over the manor." When he closed his eyes, I did not cry. I just sat quietly. For a long time, the funeral was held with all the proper rites and our son led the procession. Arthur asked me, his eyes red, "Mother, why do you not cry?" I looked at the funeral smoke rising into the sky and adjusted his collar. "Your father passed peacefully. That is enough. Now, I am 60 years old, sitting under the crabapple tree, sunning myself. My young granddaughter rests her head on my lap and asks quietly, 'Grandmother, what was the happiest moment of your entire life?' I look at the children playing in the courtyard, and I suddenly remember the young woman in the bridal sedan all those years ago, entering this manor. At that time, my only thought was how to survive in these deep, unforgiving walls. It is now," I say, gently stroking her soft hair. "Right now, grandmother is the happiest." The spring breeze blows softly, scattering crabapple petals across the courtyard. Without love, without submission, I finally lived into the person I always wanted to be, not as anyone's wife, not as anyone's mother, but simply as Celeste Zhang. A complete and independent Celeste Zhang. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like, subscribe.